Okay, welcome back. In this video, I'd like to go over a couple examples of the deliberative subjunctive and possibly get into the subjunctive of wish in the next slide as well. Um, but let's just start out here where we're at, um, and then I will progress a little bit, and then we'll go as far as we can get. Um, so uh, I think the easiest way to sort of introduce this idea is sort of thinking of a jury. So I've included this little cartoon here um, of the jury in deliberation. So they have apparently taken a long time to come to a decision. They've gotten into a fight and ultimately come to a final answer. But this sort of idea of taking a while, expressing doubt, asking questions, really deliberating over an idea. Is this person innocent? Is he guilty? Um, are we to condemn him? Are we to free him? This is really where the idea of the deliberative subjunctive comes into play. So the way I have defined it here is it is a question expressing the doubt or deliberation of the subject or author. So it may be initiated either with an interrogative pronoun or something like quis, quid, or any other adverb like how, quam, or cur. There are infinite ways to express this, or just simply as a verbal expression. Remember that you don't to express an interrogative, you don't necessarily need an interrogative pronoun or adverb. You can just do it with a verb itself. So let's take a look at a couple of these examples just to illustrate these ideas. So in this example here, I have indicative compared to subjunctive versions again. So hodie Romam eo. So today I am going to Rome. So just our normal present indicative active, and then our vocative here for to Rome. Pretty simple and straightforward sentence here. But when we change it into the deliberative subjunctive, or things take a bit of a turn. So let's take a look at what this will look like. So eam is just the present subjunctive active. So all I've done is just turn the mood into the subjunctive, like flipping a switch. You just otherwise it's the exact same verb. But here it's the question: am I to go, or should I go, or is it all right, or how? What would be the consequences if I go to Rome today or tomorrow? So here, I think it's pretty clear. The idea is the idea of casting doubt. It's a question of should I go, when should I go, or even just the very action of going itself. Am I to go to Rome? So this is just one simple example of how the deliberation can work. In the next example, I have a bit more of I'm using sort of one of these double questions or questions that have two answers here. So conspirator, so this is just a conspirator, someone who's working against the Senate, is going to, and then interficator, so this is just the present indicative passive, is going to be killed, or is he going to be saved? So these are both just present indicative passives. Simple verbs itself, but what they're asking is just the indicative statement of fact. Is the conspirator going to be killed or saved? There's no doubt. It's only just the very act or statement of it in general. But when we look at the subjunctive version here, we have really a pretty interesting change of meaning. So the conspirator is still the subject, but instead of interficator, we have interficiator and servator. So note just in form, it's pretty simple just to change these forms into the subjunctives. The I just turns into an IA, and the A of the first conjugation just turns into an E. So still pretty simple change over there. But in terms of meaning, it's quite interesting. So really what this is asking is the conspirator to be killed, or is he to be saved? It's not necessarily sure. Whoever is asking this isn't necessarily positive what the outcome of what's going to happen. It's very unclear as to whether he will be killed or saved. Versus, or it could be neither of the two. Versus the indicative version of this, where it's pretty clear there's only two options here. Is the conspirator going to be killed, or is he going to be saved? Versus, is he to be killed, or is he to be saved? So it's a fairly nuanced idea, but that is really that's kind of the distinction here that we're at. Subjunctive really starts to paint sort of another layer of meaning, and to give us really kind of a deep perspective into the mind of the Latin author. So this is some of the things that the subjunctive mood can express to us. And now finally, this last example just goes over a sort of distinction between the future tense and the subjunctive tense over here. And notice that they do actually look exactly the same. So this is a tricky thing with the subjunctive in the future. So the idea here is quid cras cum amicis faciam. So what will I do with my friends tomorrow? So this is just a very basic statement of fact. What will I do? So it's just a statement, a question, something that definitely... So the idea here, I think, is the definiteness of the action. It hasn't taken place yet, but it definitely will. It's a future tense, therefore it's something that absolutely will take place, at least in the mind of the author. Versus the subjunctive version here, quid cras cum amicis faciam. So what am I to do? So instead of having this sort of certainty of what will I do, we have a different expression here, a bit more doubt cast upon what am I to do, what could I do, if I even can do it, or if I even should do it, given certain circumstances that aren't mentioned. What am I to do with my friends tomorrow? So in this certain case, then we have a bit more of an indefinite, or another term that you'll see thrown around is a less vivid expression. So this one would be the most vivid, or most definite, and then this one would be the less vivid or less definite or indefinite answer. So those are two examples of how the deliberate, or several examples of how the deliberative subjunctive can work in Latin. So I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next example, which is the subjunctive of wish, and how exactly to express wishes. So this is just one more particular nuance of meaning that the subjunctive can take on in Latin. So to introduce this, I wanted to just mention at first the Fiddler on the Roof. Very, very excellent movie. I highly recommend it. But there's a famous song, "If I Were a Rich Man," which is always the phrase that I think of whenever I come across this subjunctive of wish, or any condition of the subjunctive, really. This idea comes to mind. So I would highly recommend, once you're done with this video, go ahead and Google it, or watch it on YouTube, "If I Were a Rich Man." Just a classic, hilarious take. All right, but let's get back down to business. The subjunctive of wish is really, like I said before, is just an expression of a great desire or want for something. It's something that isn't necessarily obtained or possessed by the speaker at this point. It's just something that the author or the writer or the speaker really wants. There's a few different ways to introduce it. We have the most common of which is utanam or OC. And definitely utanam is the most common. The textbook also mentions using either welim or welim. And note, these are just the subjunctives of wolo. Just the present and the imperfect subjunctive. Or you could use nolim or nolim. But again, it's for the negative here. But note that these are still just subjunctive forms. They're not necessarily anything different. But I would highly recommend, utanam is definitely the most common way to introduce this. But also, like I said before, our negative here is ne, not known, as we've seen in other types of negative statements. So to illustrate these other points that I have laid out up here, I want to take a look at examples, because I think that will help illustrate the idea a bit better. So when I say a future wish, I mean something that someone is wanting for in the future, something that isn't necessarily happening or could be possible at this point in time. It could be, but it could also be something that they want in the future at a later point. So that's sort of what I mean with a future wish. There's a bit of overlap with the future and present. They're fairly similar in idea, but I think the future sort of expresses just the continuity of it, something that will always be. So I've written this example. Semper fidelis populo Romano sis. So may you always be. So sis here, just the second person singular subjunctive. May you always be a person who is faithful, fidelis, to the Roman people. So you could think of maybe someone talking to Augustus Caesar. This could be, a statement. Always be faithful. Don't ever let your power come to your head. Be someone faithful to the people. Remember who you are. So this is a statement of wish, something that should take place now and even further in the future. Another way of expressing this too is fairly common idea is long live the king, long live the queen. So long live. I will just do long live the king. Diu vivat rex. So let the king live for a really long time, or I wish that the king would live for a long time. So notice even as I'm saying these, the imperatives or the exhortation subjunctives are quite similar in a lot of ways to these future subjunctive of wishes. So there's definitely a bit of overlap with what we might think of as exhortation or a command for the future or for some point, and the idea of a wish. So they're not necessarily exclusive. There is a bit of overlap. Then I have this other example here of a present wish. Ocdius nunc essem. So I pulled this one from the textbook, but it illustrates the point well. Instead of using the present subjunctive, you use the imperfect subjunctive to express something for at this current point in time. If only I were a rich man. And this is exactly how I think the song If I Were a Rich Man might be translated as well. If only I were a rich man. So the imperfect subjunctive is expressing something for just this current point in time. So if you were to think back to our little number line as well, or our timeline, the imperfect is somewhere over here. The future wish, or the present subjunctive, is over here. Excuse me, and we'll see that our pluperfect subjunctive is over here. So we'll quickly go through this last example. Utinam ne porci mei agro fugissent. So we have note quickly that our verb here is a pluperfect subjunctive. So it is based off of the third principal part, the perfect active infinitive, with our ending here. But it also represents this negative wish. So I wish that, or if only my pigs had not fled out of the field. So at some point in the past, a pluperfect idea, I wish that they would not have fled. But it's something that they've already done. I can't go back necessarily on it. And this expresses this, and this is really the key to understanding this idea of a past wish. It's something that's probably potentially also already taken place, but it's something that someone wishes that weren't the case. So I really, really wish that they wouldn't have fled, but darn it, they did. And now I'm in this predicament. So hopefully this gives you a pretty good understanding of some of the nuances to the subjunctive mood. In the final video, I'll go over the uses of the potential subjunctive. And then over the course of the week, I'll post a couple videos as well on some homework examples. So thank you. And sorry for the long video, but hopefully it's helpful.